Whether it's Shaquille O'Neal playing for the Celtics in the worst season of his career, or Dwayne Wade joining LeBron in the wine and gold for a reunion that only lasted half a season. Today, Phadeaway brings you 10 NBA legends you forgot played for that one team. And for number 10, let's just address an elephant in the room, shall we? A three-peat with Kobe and the Lakers, 3 NBA Finals MVPs, 15-time All-Star, League MVP, and of course, broken backboards. This is how we remember the great Shaq. But what if I told you there is a part of Shaq's career that no one remembers? Now you see, after the Orlando Magic drafted Shaq with the first overall pick in the 1992 NBA draft, the big man immediately became the face of the franchise, from his insane dunks to sheer dominance on the court. Shaq was at the top of the NBA world for nearly 2 decades, but every great career is bound to come to an end. And for Shaq, this came in the 2010-2011 season, when he moved to Beantown to join the Boston Celtics. And rumor has it, the move turned out to be a disaster. In fact, it was the first time the 4-time NBA champion was just a role player. Now imagine that. The great Shaquille O'Neal, the big Cactus, the big Aristotle, the Diesel was nothing more than a mere role player. In fact, it was the smallest role O'Neal ever assumed in the NBA. I'm talking mid at its finest. In 37 games, Shaq was whipping out stats that your average Joe might frown on. He averaged just 9 points, 4 rebounds, and 1 block per game. Look, I love Shaq, but let's be real. Those numbers was about as low as you can get for a Hall of Famer like Shaq. It's like watching one of your superheroes lose their powers or something. And you know it's bad when you're saying yourself, you should have hung up the sneakers years ago. But nope, he decided to roll the dice with the Celtics, and boy, did it backfire big time. Now, speaking of the Celtics, back in the 80s, our guy at number 9 was also donning the green jersey. Robert Parrish was drafted by the Golden State Warriors in 1976. However, his legend was unquestionably built in Boston. In fact, most fans only remember him in a Celtics jersey. He was one of the record holders for the longest careers with 21 seasons. 14 of those years were with the Celtics, in the era where he was a staple to their 1980s dynasty alongside Larry Bird and Danny Ainge. And just for reference, they went on to win 3 championships. But moving towards the end of his career, Parrish wanted one more ring, and he knew his best bet was Jordan and the Bulls. Now talk about using 100% of your brain power. In the 1996-97 season, a move that left jaws dropping across the league, Parrish got traded to the defending champion Chicago Bulls, a team fresh off of their record-setting 72-10 season. And man, it worked wonders. My guy was hoping to win one more ring before he hung it up, and he got his wish. Although he didn't play much, his role with the Bulls was limited to the bench, as he averaged less than 10 minutes per game, scoring only 3 points per game. But he got himself one more ring, so who's really complaining? In a nutshell, the trade did help Parrish win his last ring, but did it work for Karl Malone, who was searching for his first one? Our guy at number 8, one of the greatest scorers in NBA history. Malone is still remembered for his brilliance with the Utah Jazz. It was twice during his decorated career that he came awfully close to winning that championship, but it was undone by a couple of Jordan buzzer beaters. So as Malone turned 40, he still had this burning desire to host that championship trophy high above his head. And where did he turn for his best shot at glory? None other than the star-studded Los Angeles Lakers. So in the 2003-2004 season, Malone formed a super team with Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, and Gary Payton. And they say LeBron started the super team era. The Lakers entered as the favorites to win it all, but Malone's journey to the finals was far from smooth. LA cruised to an 18-3 start to the season, but 4 minutes into a game against the Phoenix Suns, Malone suffered a knee injury and missed 39 games. In the first 7 games without their Hall of Fame power forward in the lineup, the Lakers lost 6 of the next 7 games. Anyhow, the Lakers entered the postseason with a 56-26 record, and it was at this time when Malone made his triumphant return in the first round against the Houston Rockets, dropping 30 points and 13 rebounds in Game 4. Talk about making a statement. The Lakers breezed past the Rockets in 5 games, then took down the San Antonio Spurs and Kevin Garnett's Minnesota Timberwolves in 6 games each. But despite all the heroics, the Lakers' dream came crashing down in the finals against the Detroit Pistons. Poor Karl Malone. The mailman himself never did get to deliver that championship ring. But not winning a championship is better than potential that never got fulfilled, isn't it? Because for our guy at number 7, that is exactly what happened. Back in the day, Brandon Roy was the talk of the town, a rising star whose potential seemed limitless. Think of Zion Williamson type hype. He was destined to become one of the NBA's elite, leading the Portland Trail Blazers back to the promised land after years of struggle. And I mean, during the 2006-2007 season, Brandon Roy was so good that despite only playing 57 games, he won Rookie of the Year. And if that don't tell you how good he was, I don't know if anything will. Roy's talent was undeniable, earning him 3 consecutive All-Star selections, cementing his status as a future legend. But unfortunately, fate had other plans. Persistent knee injuries plagued his career, robbing him of his explosiveness and cutting his journey short. Despite the setbacks, Roy refused to give up. After being waived from his contract in the 2011-2012 season, he made a valiant comeback with the Minnesota Timberwolves in 2012. In his short return to the court, Roy showed flashes of his former self, but it was clear that the injuries had taken their toll, with him averaging only 5 points and 2 rebounds along with 4 assists per game in just 5 appearances. It was over for Roy. The knee injuries had left him with no meniscus in either knee. In the end, it was a bittersweet farewell for a player who once held so much promise. As we move on to our guy at number 6, he went through the same ordeal as Karl Malone. He tried everything but never won that championship. Following a highly successful run in Sacramento, the Philadelphia 76ers acquired Chris Webber from the Sacramento Kings midway through the 2004-2005 season, as they were looking to find a suitable second in command to the great Allen Iverson. And it did work to some extent, as the Sixers did make the playoffs that season, but Webber was never happy there. He just couldn't find his groove. Between reduced playing time and injuries, it was clear he wasn't the same force he once was. Still, he managed to put up respectable numbers, averaging 15 points and 7 rebounds per game. But let's be real, Webber knew his time was up in Philly, so off he went, traded to the Detroit Pistons, and after just 1 season, he gave it his all for 43 games before eventually hanging up the jersey for good with the Golden State Warriors. Now you see, the NBA championship is a dream for all great players, and to fulfill that dream, players go to all extent. I mean, look at our guy at number 5. Tracy McGrady was one of the best shooting guards I've ever seen, and during the majority of the 2010s, earning 7 All-Star selections and multiple All-NBA nods. But he only missed one thing: a championship. However, he almost got that championship in his final season that nobody remembers. In a very desperate attempt to win that coveted championship during the final week of the 2012-2013 season, McGrady signed with the San Antonio Spurs. During that time, he did little to nothing but ride the bench. However, had it not been for a miracle Ray Allen 3 in the winding seconds in Game 6 of the 2013 NBA Finals, McGrady would have gotten a ring. But the 3 landed, the Spurs lost the final 2 games of the finals, and McGrady retired the following season. Tracy played just 6 games for the Spurs before finally bidding farewell to the sport of basketball. Nonetheless, as we move on to our top 4 NBA legends, make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, because things are gonna get crazy. And I mean Dennis Rodman level crazy. Following the breakup of the Chicago Bulls dynasty in 1998, Rodman was near the end of his NBA rope. Jordan had retired, Scottie Pippen had signed a lucrative deal with the Houston Rockets, and the Bulls had moved on. It was clear as day that Rodman was no longer wanted on the team. So in early 1999, the Worm joined the Lakers. Surprisingly, by the time he got there, Rodman was already a 5-time champion and was on a streak of leading the league in rebounding for 7 years running. But his stint with the Lakers was as forgettable as it gets. In the 23 games that he played, the Worm averaged 2 points, 11 rebounds, and 1 assist per game. Now sure, his rebounding game was still on point, but it was a far cry from his glory days, especially compared to his previous seasons of averaging 15 boards per game. Talk about a drop-off, shall we? So after less than a stellar season in Los Angeles, Rodman bid farewell to the Lakers and wrapped up his legendary career with a brief stint with the Dallas Mavericks, where things got even nastier. But it was not as nasty as our guy at number 3. Back in the golden days, Allen Iverson was one of the most electrifying players in the league. Watching him play was a sight to behold. He was a cultural icon. His time in Philadelphia and Denver will never be forgotten. Those years were so memorable that many forget he played for the Memphis Grizzlies, and I don't blame anybody who missed it either, as Iverson only played 3 games for the Grizzlies in 2009. Just like in Detroit, Iverson didn't warm to the idea of coming off the bench. In those games, he averaged 12 points in 22 minutes per game before leaving the team for personal reasons, and eventually being waived. Anyhow, as we move on to our top 2, don't be surprised. Most people would rather forget about the final year of Hakeem Olajuwon's legendary career. His playing days at large saw him win 2 championships and an MVP with the Houston Rockets and become one of the greatest centers in NBA history. He was the face of the franchise for nearly 2 decades, but he turned down a new contract with the Rockets after the 2000-2001 season. Instead, he headed up north and departed for Toronto for his final year. There, Olajuwon was a shell of himself. He posted the worst numbers of his career. His long season up north was extremely forgettable. In fact, he averaged a career-low 7 points and 6 rebounds per game and started just 37 of the 61 games he played as he dealt with back problems. And it was at this time that the Dream realized his dream was over. It was time to hang him up, big boy. And now for today's number 1, Dwayne Wade is remembered for his time as a member of the Miami Heat, and for good reason. He won 3 championships for the team and was one of the best players in the league for a lot of his tenure there. However, you would be shocked to hear that my guy also had a weird half-season stint in Cleveland during the 2016-2017 season to reunite with LeBron James. Wade spent most of that year coming off the bench and looked far past his best days. Ultimately, he was traded back to Miami halfway through the year, where he spent the rest of his career. Despite the potential excitement of a LeBron-Wade reunion, Wade's stint in Cleveland never felt right. He didn't fit well in Cleveland. The Cavs struggled out the gate. He played 46 games, averaging 11 points, 3 assists, and 3 rebounds per game, and ultimately the Cavs traded Wade back to Miami, where he re-signed for his final season. Now, if you want to know how great Reggie Miller was, just click right here.